Hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. This is Mark, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome free resource on businessforunicorns.com. If you ever find yourself feeling frustrated with your training gym because you know that there are all sorts of things you could work on, but you're not really sure how to prioritize, you don't know what's the most important thing to work on or what order you should be tackling your priorities, well, now is the time to go to businessforunicorns.com, click the button, and fill out our free self-assessment. With the Ultimate Training Gym Owner Report Card, you will gain immediate clarity on just where to be focusing your attention to create more positive impact on your community, to drive more revenue and take home income, and to do it all with less stress and more peace of mind. So go to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, fill out that free self-assessment, and start building a business and life you love today.
Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, I'm really stoked because I'm having a guest back again who is a friend and a Unicorn Society member and a colleague of mine at Business for Unicorns, and it's Ben Pickard. You've just heard his bio, so I'll skip all that fun stuff. Let's just dive in and welcome Ben to the stage. Ben, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
What a treat. I mean, we talk together and work together all the time now, but we haven't recorded a lot of our conversations on the podcast, and I think we're going to be doing more of it. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So I guess for context, let's just, since we last spoke, our relationship to each other has changed a little bit because over the past year or so, not only have you been a Unicorn Society member, but you started working for us at Business for Unicorns as a coach, running our Unicorn Society Pro group, running our Leadership Society group, now also doing some individual coaching. So I kind of wanted to start by just talking about that a little bit because, the audience knows one of my favorite topics is coaching, right? Life coaching, business coaching, leadership coaching. I love coaching as a means of managing people and a means of help people kind of one up their life. And I've watched you fall in love with coaching over the last year or two of our work together. So I want to just start by just talking about that and talk about, can you just going back to when you were first introduced to coaching, because you coach with me, but you also had some other experience outside of Business for Unicorns coaching. Just talk a little bit about what drew you to having a coach. What did you get from that? Let's start there.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit biased because I actually hired my first business coach 3 months before I opened Lean Strong. And then other than short transition periods between other people I've worked with, I've basically always had a business coach. I've always seen value in not reinventing the wheel. As much as when I started the business, I thought we're going to be different and we're going to be special. And there's things about the industry I want to change. The reality is we're not that different. So always starting with a business coach and then working with a few different people, including Pete actually, before he joined BFU. I personally saw a lot of value and saw how it helped my business grow a lot faster than it would have without it. And then I can say kind of through accident, but more preparation meets opportunity. I have a friend who recognized that our business was going well and wanted me to do a bit of consulting with some other people. His business is working with other businesses. And he's like, hey, you're doing really well. Can you just tell these people what you're doing and help them out? I'm like, okay, sure. And I absolutely loved it. And despite the imposter syndrome, which I still feel a bit today, I don't know if that ever really goes away.
Yeah.
The results spoke for themselves. People were legitimately making more money while doing less of what they didn't want to do. And then from there, me and you would obviously, since we've always chatted, I think I'm on year 5 of being a BFU client. I just mentioned I'm really liking this. Is there any potential? And you're like, yeah, maybe. Let's keep the door open to conversation. And then I guess now a year and a half ago, you were like, hey, let's work together.
Yeah.
And so far it's been a huge hit. The people I'm working with seem to be getting immense value. I'm solving more of systems and process related issues,
right.
Helping them solve it more specifically. And it's a lot of fun for me and it seems to be working for them. And I think that's kind of the bottom line when it comes to a coaching relationship. Both parties are getting value.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I love that you started off with you've kind of always tried to have a business coach because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. And I think that's just such a missed opportunity for people who've never worked with a business coach. It's why not? have someone on your side in your back pocket that you can talk to on a regular basis that's kind of walked a similar path to you. Because I think the kind of coaching that we've both engaged in and the kind of coaches I think we are part mentors, part consultants, part coaches, right? We're sharing our experience, we're sharing the experience we've seen in others, we're helping people, find shortcuts to things that, in areas where they might have been taking the long path, helping them avoid failures that we've made and we've seen other people make. And so, oftentimes people think coaching is just, just like therapy or something. And sure, we talk about feelings from time to time, but I love that the value you've always gotten from it when we've spoken has always been extremely practical, right? Not that you haven't gotten other deeper meaning, but I mean, it's also just like, I just want to be the best business owner I can. If that means working with people who've done what I've done, why not find some shortcuts? Why not learn from their experience? And yeah, obviously I couldn't agree more. I wouldn't be spending my life doing this.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about the transition from having coaches for years to deciding I want to do this myself, because not everyone makes that leap, but there's a lot of people who've had many, many coaches for many years and have not said, oh, I want to do this. I want to be on the other end of this conversation. So talk to me about that transition for you.
Yeah, well, like a little bit tongue in cheek, like the transition of a or the life cycle of a fitness business owner is like start at a trainer, be in a big bucks gym, realize you hate it, open your own thing, maybe struggle with it, move to online training, move to some sort of business coaching or mentorship. Then you probably got to move to copywriting, then crypto, and then I don't know what's going to be next year.
I love that crypto made your list already.
Well, I see it from the fitness people I follow that it's like, right, okay, I guess that's the thing. So part of me is like, oh my goodness, I'm following this kind of like sarcastic path. But the other part of it is like one of the coaches I worked with, she does a lot of like personality type assessments. So she was more of like an executive coach and figure out like, what do you want to do with your life kind of coach.
Yep.
And a lot of the work she did with me was helping me realize like, I'm really good with putting the pieces in a puzzle together. If you can give me like, these are the pieces we need to manage, I can help figure out how to put those in a way that fits your profit and loss and your lifestyle. Even obviously there's some confirmation bias, but like even when I was like 10 and we went on family camping trips, I was the one who had to fit all the stuff into the back of our trunk because there's way too much stuff for a 4-person family and way too small a car. And I just get how things fit together. And I can see like, hey, it looks like there might actually be another path here that is already kind of walked that you're not seeing when you're trying to like hack your way through the jungle 10 feet away. So after honestly having a few people kind of fall into my lap through the other friend I mentioned, helping like who he referred me to some people. I really just like, for me, from a fulfillment standpoint, got a lot of joy out of like helping people have a better business. Because I'm aware we usually don't get into fitness purely to make money. It's probably not the best way to make money. If you wanted to start a business purely for a profit and loss, I don't know if fitness would be the best call. But there's also not a ton of businesses out there where you legitimately get to make a living impacting people's lives.
Yeah.
And I saw it as a little bit, after I started doing some, I saw it as an opportunity to like, there's some amazing trainers out there with like such a powerful purpose and story and mission, and who deliver an amazing service to their clients. And like, they're just doing it from a business standpoint in like the most inefficient way.
The most haphazard, make it up as you go.
Yeah.
And, and I say this to listeners, we say this with love, right? I mean, these are the kind if that's you, we want to work with you and help you. There is a better way, but you're right. People got into this for the passion of helping others. They didn't get into it because they love spreadsheets and metrics and, and profit and loss sheets.
And they usually, for the people who don't like all those things, usually the way they solve the problems is all the clients just have their cell phone. Mm-hmm. So when there's an issue, they just get texted and then they deal with it. And that means it's like, hey, I can't really take a vacation. I'm always working. Can't take any time off. It's super stressful. Don't get me wrong. There's highs in there where you're like loving your life doing it. But then there's a bunch of lows where it's like, how much extra work are you doing to get the outcome done? Mm-hmm. And if you can put a few things in place to make your life a little bit easier, that's not selfish. That's actually teeing you up to better serve your clients. In the same way, like I used to believe that profit was evil because corporations are evil and everybody is bad if you're not a small independent business who like your badge of honor is grinding. And the reality is like without profit and without systems, we're always scrambling and we can't show up at our best. And I know what it's like to be on the floor with a client and supposed to be helping them fix their deadlift or squat or whatever. And I'm actually thinking about that management problem I need to deal with as soon as the session's over. Like, that's just not our best service. That's not why we got into it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the definition of trying to work smarter instead of harder. And some people who get into the business, not having a passion for business, but a passion for fitness only, they wind up just grinding themselves, working so hard to make up for the fact that they don't have consistent processes in place or systems in place to help run the business. And it makes so much sense that, at the time to do it that way. Because like, well, I'm just going to work harder. I'm just going to put in the hours. And we live in a society that celebrates the quote grind and the tenacity and the resilience and all that. And it's exhausting. And most people that we talk to before they, right when they join Unicorn Society or come to coach with us are burnt out. And they've maybe been burnt out for years.
Yeah.
Of just, having a life of constantly putting out fires every day with no one to stop and ask them, why are there so many fires? Right.
And the fires aren't, I mean this again with love, because I'm dealing with some of the same problems. And that's why I have you in my corner to help me get some clarity on that. It helps immensely, like huge, huge value. But like a lot of the fires we're having, like, it's not the first time they've shown up.
Mm-hmm.
We're not Elon Musk trying to reuse rockets, and it's legitimately a new problem we're trying to solve. It's like, oh shit, I'm overwhelmed and I really need to hire a trainer. Like, I know my friend who's a trainer. Let me just get him in here and you can jump in like a couple days. I don't really need to train him. And then lo and behold, 6 months later, that guy's not happy or that girl's not happy, and they end up leaving. And we're like, oh my God, I'm stuck in the same situation. It's like, if you're dealing with like, how do I hire? How do I onboard a client? How do I track some key metrics? How do I grow my business? Like, these are all problems that like every business ever has dealt with before. Like, why not get the support and help for at least best practices in fitness? Yeah. Absolutely tweak it to your own culture and values and the way you want to operate. But like, I think back to the problems I dealt with in like year 2, and now I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had those problems. Like, I could solve that in a minute. Yeah. And that's just because I had coaching and mentorship to help me learn the best ways to do it.
Yeah, 100%. It makes me think of an analogy. So, stick with me. I promise it'll circle around. My husband, Andrew, loves puzzles, and he'll often, and I really don't like puzzles or board games or anything like that, but he loves them. And he and friends will be sitting around our kitchen table doing puzzles, and I'll be taking them hours and hours. They always do really complicated ones. And like myself or someone else will walk over, having not engaged in the puzzle, and I'll walk over and stand over their shoulder and immediately see several pieces to put in place. And I'll stand there and just being there for a few seconds, I'll see a few pieces I can put in place. Like, how'd you get those so quickly? And it's like, well, I haven't been staring at these for 3 hours. I'm not staring at them 3 inches from my face. I'm standing above you, this 10,000 foot view, and I can see different things from up here, not having been in the trenches with you and staring at this puzzle for 4 friggin' hours. And like, that's the analogy that came as you were talking about coaching, was like, yeah, there's just someone on the outside who can have a different perspective, is not in the trenches, working in the business every day, putting out fires, who can help you get a little perspective yourself, and just get a little farther faster by not being so bogged down with the day-to-day like you are every day. So I don't know if that analogy tracks with our listeners, but I mean, like, it's absolutely what I was thinking as you were describing your relationship to coaching.
Well, it's totally true. Like, you talk to people like, oh, I don't have time to be able to like fit in on the business time, which I think falls into that bucket if we're going to split it between on and in the business. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't have time to do that, like that, it's such an oxymoron. Like, you have to make that time, because you don't realize that, yeah, those 60 or whatever hours a week you're putting in, like, how much are you actually getting done in that time? Like, what if that thing that took you 3 hours could now take you an hour and a half, right? We're not realistically going to get it down to probably a minute, but there are some things too that I've worked with people, and it's like, why, with love, like, why do you do that? What's the outcome you're trying to achieve? And they're not always clear on it.
Yeah, of course.
And that's like, when I take an hour with you on like what was our standing Wednesday morning call, like, it's the beginning of my day. I'm usually in like answering emails and like getting shit done mode. And then I take that call and have a chance to step back and get that 10,000 foot view. And I'm like, oh, these pieces can actually fit totally this way. And what would have taken, Andrew and his friends 2 hours of staring 2 inches away from the puzzle could actually be done in a few minutes when you get a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, let's switch gears a little bit because I know up until this point, I feel like we've been geeking out about our love of coaching and the value we get from coaching, and I think it's useful for some of our listeners because if anything, listeners, I hope that what you hear in mine and Ben's conversation here is a validation that if any of the things we've been talking about are struggles that you're experiencing, that you're not alone, friends. This is very common, and if you're already working with us at Business Unicorns, great. Hopefully, you get a sense of our approach to coaching and hopefully it's already been valuable to you. And if you haven't worked with us yet, hope you get a sense that we're not here to judge. We're here to help you get farther faster. We're here to help you do more with less stress. We're here to help teach you all the ways that we have failed and we've seen others fail so you can avoid it, right? And that's really our approach to coaching. But one of the reasons I asked Ben to join the Business Unicorns team and help us is because one of his strong suits is creating systems in the business. He, like us at Mark Fisher Fitness, has implemented EOS, an entrepreneur operating system. Some of you might know it from the book Traction. He's also implemented Profit First at his business. These are just examples of systems in the business that Ben is really great at, that we help our clients work through. So I just wanted to talk to a little bit about some of those systems, Ben, that I know that you care so much about and are so valuable. When you think about some of our listeners who maybe don't have that many systems in the business, they don't have any key metrics, they don't have clear goals, they don't have a process for managing their money. When you think big picture about those folks who we want to help so desperately, where do they start? If you are going to start from a place of creating some systems in your business, how do you figure out where to start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll get to the actual answer that you're looking for in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to be a bit more like everybody needs to do this because it's the greatest. And the reality is everybody doesn't need to do everything because one thing isn't the greatest. But my initial question is now, like, are you happy with how your business is currently running?
Mm-hmm.
Like for the person, I kind of merged a few people I know together, and the clients have their phone number. They do all the stuff. They're essentially on call all the time, even though they view it that way. Like if you're genuinely happy with that, don't change. Like you're doing it. It's going well. Like it might not be the ideal way to run a business from when you talk to other people, but if it fulfills you and makes you happy, keep doing what you're doing.
I'll also add, and if you're making money doing it that way. Cool.
Yeah, assuming it's not a volunteer position.
Yeah.
And if you're making money. But I'm going to operate on the assumption that there's some stuff in your business that you want to change. Chances are you like the fitness aspect, but you want to make anything to do with systems and tracking and KPIs and scorecards easier. I think the easiest way to start is like whiteboard, blank piece of paper, and write down what are the most important metrics to you in your business. Don't worry about like how you're going to get the data or how the formulas work or whether it's a spreadsheet or some other software or whatever. Just like what are the key pieces of data that you want to see on a regular basis, and list out some stuff. You might get anywhere from like 5 to 10. Start with those. I'm going to lovingly suggest that like one of those metrics should be revenue and another one should be profit, and I guess profit margin, because that's why we're running. It's one of the reasons why we're running a business. But if you can start with what is the key things for you, it's really easy to then reverse engineer it. It's like the same way if a client comes in and they say, I'm not really sure what my goals are. Like your job is to help extract their goals from them, reflect it back to them, make it clear so that they're motivated to make a change. So if you can just start with, here's what I want to see. And if you're genuinely not totally sure, like that's where you can ask us for help. But then from there, reverse engineer, where do you get that information? Like one of the key metrics for me is, because we do semi-private or small group training, is how many people are in each session. Because we know one person per session, we do a cap of 4. One person per session isn't great. 2 starts to be okay. 3 is essentially pure profit for that third person. And 4 is like we're rocking and rolling. So I look at that metric on a weekly basis. And it's simple. It's just number of people divided by number of sessions. And if you can start with that goal in mind of like, what do you think you want to see? It's a lot simpler to reverse engineer it versus someone coming and being like, just tell me what I should be tracking. That's the equivalent of a client coming in the consult for a fitness business saying, tell me what my goals should be. It's like, I can't even begin to assume that I know what makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great way to look at it, right? Because, we both come from the school of coaching and consulting that it's like, there's not a one size fits all solution, right? There are frameworks and models that are useful, And everyone has to kind of right size them for their business. But when it comes to key metrics, Ben's exercise here makes so much sense. Just write down the things that you want to know about the business that tell you whether it's going well. And you're not choosing from an infinite list of numbers. Our businesses as training gyms are not that complicated. So, I'm sure you would agree with this, but if I had to start, you just want to think about kind of 4 categories of things you can track. The first category is, how are you attracting people? Right. So this could be like how you're collecting emails, how you're getting followers on Instagram, right? How are you attracting new people to know your business exists? How are you then converting those people, whether through a sales conversation, a trial, etc.? How are you delivering your service? Are your current clients happy? Client satisfaction scores, things like that are great. Number of people showing up per session, right? Like Ben's would fit in that one. And then collecting is the money part. Is are you bringing in the money? Is all of that translating to dollar bills? Hopefully in your pocket. And so it's not a panacea. It's not a great big ocean worth of data. Our businesses are simple, so it's just like are you attracting people, converting people, delivering on the experience? Are they staying for a while? Retention would be in delivery, and are you collecting money? So I think that's a great exercise, Ben. Is just to write down some things you care about, and then figure out how to collect the data and what the pulse is going to be. But I think that's a really smart one. Any place else you'd recommend people start?
I got a lot of value out of EOS, as you know. I think the barrier to entry is a little bit high, a lot high for most businesses, and not really all that valuable for the average training gym.
Yeah.
That being said, though, even if it's uncomfortable, adopting some of those practices, like every quarter, are you sitting down to reflect on how the previous quarter went and plan out the next one? That's no different than Dan John's plan the hunt to discuss the hunt, which he applies to fitness.
Yep.
And I would definitely encourage people to have 2 main things. One is a weekly scorecard of ideally lead metrics, meaning the metrics you can control, and having 5 to 10 on there, exactly the categories as you just mentioned. But I've also got a ton of value personally for my business of having like a monthly reflection document. How many members did we have? What are our snapshot last day of the month at midnight? How is our revenue? How's our profit? How's our number of active members? How's our percent of people on freeze? But I basically run my entire business off of a weekly scorecard and a monthly. Like the scorecard is what do we want to do, and then the monthly, what I call KPIs, is how did we do based on what we thought. And all I'm really doing is the same as we do in fitness. Somebody squats kind of wonky, you do an intervention, you then retest. You're not sure if your business is going the right way. Here's the interventions we're going to do on our scorecard. We do them throughout the month. We then take a look at the end to see, hey, is my business better the same way as Sally's squat better?
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And the analogy of thinking about programming for your clients, I think will resonate with a lot of folks, because it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just write a program for yourself. What are the goals you have as a business for this month? And then spend time reflecting. I think it's people, really underappreciate the fact that as adults and as businesses, we learn through reflection. We learn through sitting down and pausing, thinking about and sense making about our business. And that what you explained there, just starting with a simple monthly document to sit down and say, did we do what we said we were going to do? And if you have a team, then you have a conversation with your team about it. Here were the goals. Which did we hit? Which did we not hit? Here are the metrics. Which did we hit? Which did we not hit? Doesn't need to be a fancy formal meeting. You don't need to hire a $10,000 EOS implementer unless you really want to, right? Yeah, you can just have a meeting and reflect on, did we do what we said we were going to do? And it sounds simple, but I bet most of you listening don't do it. Most of you, I love you, but you're probably not doing it, and it's not complicated. And when you do, you as an organization will become a learning organization, and your staff will become continuous learners. And whoever learns the fastest grows the fastest, And so, just getting in that habit of creating a culture where learning is the norm, I think is much simpler than many of you think it is. So I think it's a great tip, Ben. And what are the kinds of things that you tend to learn in those monthly reflections?
The biggest one for me is because I'm so emotionally attached to my business, because I started a fitness business because I love fitness. So this was out of passion, not finances primarily. My biggest learn is constantly my feelings are not always right.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, that month was probably a shit show. we're super stressed. Like, am I going to get paid this month? The challenges a lot of you listening probably have. And then when I do the data, it's like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's almost, sometimes it's the opposite where I think it was good and then it wasn't. Then I can dig in and be like, where did we go wrong? But almost always, the story I have with myself is that it's not good enough. And then when I do the monthly stuff, it was actually pretty good. But then I can make the decisions based on how did things actually go. Like, hey, we wanted to try a new LBO. We got X leads. We had this many consults. This is what worked. Oh, it worked better than last month. Let's keep going with it. Rather than a lot of people are like, what do you do for New Year's? Like, I need to do what you're doing. It's like, that's no different than a client coming in and being like, just give me a meal plan and I'll follow it. It's usually a combination of like burnout and desperation. And we all know that a client's going to follow a meal plan for like 3.5 days and then stop. So us being like, do this is going to give you 3.5 days of maybe happiness. So really getting clear on like, well, how do I make a data-driven decision rather than like a how I feel decision? And a lot of this comes from what I've learned from you. So thank you. Like, your feelings are true and they are true to you, but they aren't necessarily like what you should be acting on in that moment.
Yeah, I think it's so wise to bring it up because I think it's the reason why we try to set goals in the business and have KPIs is so that we can be organizations that make evidence-based decisions, right?
Yeah.
And your feelings are just one data point. They're important, right? They matter and they're relevant and they're valid, and they're just one data point. But for many of us, in the absence of goals and KPIs, they're the only data point. So we're only running the business based on our feelings. And again, you can get pretty far doing that for a little while, and then you won't, right? And then your feelings will be an obstacle. And so you just need other data points. And so I think that it's a great way to think about it, Ben. Is just that the feelings are valid, and they can't be the only data point. You got to have other actual evidence to make decisions about your business, and all those decisions are the ones you mentioned are so important. Like, how is this low barrier offer going? Should we do it again? Do I have enough money to hire someone new? How am I going to weather this next shutdown, which you're dealing with in Canada right now?
Number 4.
And how you're going to weather that storm because you have lots of data to help you make the decisions about what you do next. And so I think, oftentimes people, I get the energy from a lot of Unicorn Society members when they first start with us, like, why are you making me do all these numbers? Am I going to use all this crap? It just seems like super academic. And then they learn sometimes over a while that, this isn't academic. I should be looking at these numbers on a regular basis and making decisions based on what the data is telling me. And that sounds like an intimidating thing to learn how to do, but it's not. I think, especially with a coach who knows how to do it, we can help you make that transition more smoothly.
And you totally nailed it. Like, you can run when I first started our business, we went from zero to a decent amount of money, like, really quickly.
Yeah.
And I did it pretty much exclusively on like what I thought was best, which, like, it turns out I probably got lucky a fair amount of times, but like, it worked. Like you said, that'll work for a while, but then it's going to stop working. And that kind of comes back to my initial question of like, do you actually want to see change in your business?
Yeah.
It's no different than the client being like, I really love cardio, but it's not losing weight for me. And you're like, cool, why don't we introduce some nutrition and strength training interventions? They're like, no, I just really like cardio, but I'm also sad with the results. Like, I want to be clear, there's nothing wrong with not changing.
Yeah.
And if you do want to change, expect that you're going to have to change to see that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of coming to terms with yourself around like, what do you actually want to get out of this? And there's no right or wrong answer, but it has to start with like, what do you want this to be? I have friends who manage and train in their business, and they're like super happy, and they've got a great business, and they're making an awesome living, and they love it. And then there's other people who I'm a little bit more in this boat where like, I just kind of want to own a business and help with like the long-term planning.
Yeah.
But I can't do that if I'm not having anything systemized. Like, one, I don't have the information, and two, there's no freaking way I'm going to train people if they don't know what's expected of them. And even having a scorecard to be like, this is what we want you to hit. People are like, oh, great, expectations are clear. I'll go do that.
For sure. I think you're a little kinder than I am about your attitude towards change. I'm maybe a little less kind or forgiving. I think organizations and organizational leaders, right? Business owners, organizations and owners who are not changing are just slowly dying, are just slowly closing, right? I think organizations are, they're living, breathing organisms. And if they don't evolve with the world around them, the community around them, the culture within them, if they try to stay too stagnant and an owner, for example, just stays in their comfort zone, I think that it'll be painful. They will reach it. They will find a painful demise. I think they have to learn how to grow and change and evolve. And so often they only come to that conclusion. I'll use MFF as an example of this. They only come to that conclusion that they need to do something differently when saying the same has gotten so painful. Right. And this is true for MFF. We used to be very proud of the fact that for the first, 5-6 years of MFF's life, we didn't spend really a single dollar on marketing. And we didn't do anything that we could possibly call sales. Right. And we were proud of that. And the truth is that we could totally get away with that. We were growing by leaps and bounds, extra $1 million every year for the first few years. I mean, not too shabby. And it took some pain for us to realize, we need to change. We need to actually spend some money and some time on marketing and learning to get good at it. We need to have an actual repeatable, proven sales process that guarantees leads, because we weren't the new kids on the block anymore. We weren't the new kids in town. And in a place like New York City, if you don't change, you die. And that's true for a lot of competitive markets. So yeah, I want to also highlight your point in that if you're happy with the way your business is, and you're not ready for change yet, and you're making money, cool. Maybe nothing needs to happen right now. But my guess is in a few years, you'll change your mind about that.
Yeah. And even as much as I'm being probably a little nicer than I need to, like, the real question is, are you telling yourself you're happy with this? Or are you actually happy and fulfilled? And I would argue for most people, they are telling themselves it's fine how it is because they're too afraid to make the change to be actually happy.
Yeah, 100%. There's, we talk about this with clients all the time. We try, our part of our goal with our clients is to get them out of a comfort zone, try something new, try something they've never tried before, so they can get new results they've never gotten. And the same thing is true for our business. Is that often the biggest bottleneck of our business is the owner, is the leadership at the top is unwilling to change and learn new skills and try new tricks. And it's a matter of getting out of our comfort zone to do that, and some other things, right? Sometimes you just need some outside expertise, etc. But we could keep talking all day. And there's so many things we can talk about, but I love the our conversation today geared towards people who are new at creating systems. Before I let you go, let me just ask one more question for the folks who have been listening and are like, yeah, I've been tracking systems for a while. I have maybe weekly KPIs, and maybe I have goals. Maybe I've implemented some money management system like Profit First, so I know how my money gets spent, and I'm still having trouble growing the business in the way that I want. What are some places you would encourage them to look? How do you diagnose what's going wrong, or start to, for a company who has all the right metrics but has not been able to find the growth they want?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, obviously, with a ton of bias, if you're not currently a BFU client, that's one of the reasons why.
Sure. Casual commercial.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and like I said at the beginning, I've always had a business coach. It means I had less times when I was that stuck. So don't reinvent the wheel. For the other people who are, either working with someone or that's not an option you want to pursue right now, I'd really be looking at doing like a bit of a deep reflection into that, like get all the pieces on the table. I know people call them like creative days or CEO days, but like take a full day where you're not working in the business. Your email is not going to get checked. Figure out like, what are the trends? Because one of the, like, as I've explained to a few clients I've worked with, each week on the scorecard is useful, but like not really that useful. I'm really looking for how did things change? Because if we have a goal of doubling our leads, just because we said it this week doesn't mean we're going to see anything next week. So I really like going through historically, like what are the trends, what kind of happened during those periods, what's working and not working. And as you mentioned, like that's the reflection piece. Just try to, like with Andrew's puzzle, like how do you take a step back to see, hey, this is what we're seeing and this is what we need to get on top of. Because it's really good to track all the things, or it can be good to track all the things, but the real value in it is like, what are those things teaching you? Because if you're tracking points of data that you don't do anything with, like arguably you could just save the time and not track that right now, because you're always going to change what's on the scorecard. You're always going to change what's on your KPIs. You're always going to be making tweaks to your business because we all want to grow and learn. It's like, are you taking the time to actually like learn from that data?
Yeah,
It's,
I think
it's not complicated.
that's well said. I think it's a great advice. One is get a coach, help get a shift up your perspective, maybe learn from them. And two is actually use the data to do some more reflecting. You're clearly missing something in your data or missing some lessons to be learned from your data. If you're tracking all the right things and apparently performing well and not seeing the growth you want, then something's missing. So taking some time to look at big picture trends, I think, is really smart. I'll throw out one more on top of this, is because we just changed this. If you go to businessunicorns.com right now, there's a new tool we have on there called the Gym Owner Report Card.
Oh, yeah.
And we use this, Ben and I use this in our coaching all the time. And it's a really just great kind of diagnostic tool. It just takes 6 areas of your business and asks you how you're doing in each of them by giving you 5 systems for each of those 6 areas that we think you should have in your business. And it'll help you understand, how well you're doing. It's a self-assessment. It's really easy. It's a PDF you can download. And it's a really, really great way to just assess how are we doing as a business? Do we have the systems we need to grow the way we want to? So check that out as another tool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a really good starting point, because sometimes the question is, I don't even know what I should implement. Here it's like, do this evaluation to see. This is the equivalent of a movement screen to your business.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to businessunicorns.com right now, you'll see a button for it in the lower right, right before before you scroll, called called Get Gym Owner Report Card. So go ahead and do that. That's another great tool that helps you to self-reflect on how the business is going. Cool. Ben, I'm going to have you back again soon, because we're going to have more of these conversations, but any parting words now that we're into 2022, any parting words for our listeners?
My 2022 started with the first day of the year. Our government shut us down for the 4th time. And I guess for me, like you said, we don't really take a lot of time to pause and reflect. Like for me, COVID's really been a time of like, what do I want out of my life?
Mm-hmm.
I guess my parting words would be, if you're still struggling to get some of these things going that we talked about today, and a lot of it comes down to fear, like you're clear you want to change, but you're scared to make the next step. Use 2022 as the year to make that change. How long do you want to keep doing the same thing? Like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing the same thing, but if you're sick and tired of it, like, new year is a chance for new goals, and this is an awesome time to, at minimum, at least download that report card to see where do you want to make a difference. Because like, I think once COVID ends or wherever this comes to, like, at least in my gym, our clients are becoming more clear that like the fitness needs to be a part of their life. We are making our livings doing something that legitimately benefits people. And I feel like we have a bit of an obligation to make sure we can do our best to serve them. So if you've been feeling stuck, you've got an awesome business that the world genuinely needs you. What do you need to do differently in order to do your best with them?
Yeah. Well said, my friend. Thanks so much for the great conversation today. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Have a kick-ass day.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you loved today's podcast, and forgive me, I want to remind you one more time, if you haven't already done so, head over to businessunicorns.com, click the button, and get your free self-assessment, the ultimate training gym owner report card. I promise you're going to want to dig into this resource and get the support you need, finding crystal clarity on exactly where you need to be focusing to create a life and a business you love.